Hello, my name is Dinesh Ramo. I'm from the University of Birmingham, and I'll be talking about motivation among engineering students. And we'll be talking about the results of a qualitative analysis on the data. This was done in collaborations with Iltafuddin from Aston University. So the 2008 recession resulted in reduced unemployment, and this had a detrimental effect on recruitment of engineering graduates, and this resulted in lack of interest in registering into engineering degrees at several universities. However, there's a severe shortage of engineering graduates in the UK, and this shortage is in part contributed by the dropout rates of engineering students, and we wanted to look at what were the factors that demotivated the students. So our research question was to see whether there was a decrease in motivation over the course of an engineering student's academic life, and what were the factors that affected them. Motivation comes from a Latin verb meaning to move, and it can be, and while it's a broad concept, there are many definitions for it, but we will use the definition whereby we define it as the process whereby goal-directed activity is instigated and sustained among humans. Our aims were to understand the change in motivation throughout the course of undergraduate engineering students, to explore the factors, both internal and external, that had an effect on student motivation, and our objectives were to conduct semi-structured interviews with students from different years and to perform qualitative analysis to understand the data. So we developed semi-structured interviews, we recruited students, conducted interviews, and we'll take you through the process where we analyze the data. This is the pool of participants who helped us with our research. They came from a number of universities across Birmingham, University of Birmingham, Aston University, and Birmingham City University, and we had a student from each year in the engineering degree. The research process started with creating the interviews and interviewing the initial participants, transcription, memo writing, coding, and development of the theory. And throughout the process, we used the codes from previous interviews to inform the following interviews. And this was an iterative process whereby we developed the theory, and it was an ongoing process until we finalized the data. A code is a subjective short idiom, or usually a word that summarizes the data that is obtained via qualitative analysis. So we analyze the transcript to bring out these codes and organize them into a hierarchy and found relationships between them based on the quote. So each code had to have a associated quote from the transcript, and each relationship had to have an associated quote within it. So we found that by building up this model, that there were four major themes that came out of this, which was the degree itself, internal and external factors, and the motivation. So we won't be discussing all of the motivation types and needs that we analyzed due to time constraints, but we'll focus on a few of them to show you how this kind of analysis can bring out the different types of emotional and external factors that affect a student's motivation. So these are some of the basic categories that we found, which built up towards other categories through the hierarchy, coming to the final themes. And these were associated with the need for achievement, which is a type of motivation, and we found that there were many factors that affected the student's need for achievement or sense of achievement. Workload in particular affected performance, and this in turn affected their need for achievement and their sense of achievement. The lecturer was a huge component in this model. All the students talked about how a lecturer's performance or how the lecturer's teaching methods and feedback contributed towards their sense of accomplishment. In terms of workload, this is just an example quote to illustrate this code. And all the students said that the workload was excessive, and this contributed towards their demotivation, and that some of the assignments couldn't be completed to their full potential because of the workload, and therefore they seemed to think that they couldn't achieve the same kind of grades that they think they could if they had a more flexible schedule. Year of study was another huge factor, whereby we found that there was a decrease in motivation as we went from the first year to the final year. Lecturers were a huge component in all the transcript, whereby the students always associated their demotivation with perhaps the lecturer's lack of initiative in making the lessons interesting or in helping them with their problems and so forth. And particularly the teaching methods, they liked class test, practical work rather than theory alone, because they felt that this helped them maintain their interest in the subject as well as give them practical help for their future careers. So affiliation was another important component. Particularly peer interaction, and the students reported that interacting with their friends, the encouragement from their friends, the support from their friends was helpful in keeping them motivated and engaged in class, and especially group work and class activities were very important to students, as they felt that this gave them practical experience in what they were studying, and also allowed them to engage with their peers in class. And of course, again, the lecturer's support and the relevance of the topic that they were studying to their future careers or to their interests were a huge component. And these are a few quotes to support the idea of group work. And the need to be independent, whilst all students said that they needed to needed social relationships with their parents, the lecturer, and with their peers and friends, the need for independence was also a huge component in student motivation. And in particular, class tests again were considered to be very important, and students felt that they were getting knowledge as well as getting a good indicator of what to expect throughout the module, and how, and it also gave them a measure of importance of how well they were doing in each module. But there were also some external factors that affected the need for autonomy, and particularly the parents. The parents' support and expectations played a huge part in the career choice that they made, and sometimes their choice to become an engineer or to get into the engineering degree. The expected income of the prospect of a good living after they leave their studies was another component in their career choice. And some students also reported that their school teacher affected their career choice in helping them take an interest in the topic. But all of them reported that interest in the topic was a major component in their choice to become an engineer and to continue with this degree. The influence of parents was one of the major findings in this research, and we found that parents had parental expectations and support, and the students' idea of whether their parents were happy or not had a huge impact on their performance, whether they got good grades or bad grades, and these affected how the parents felt about their progress. Parents also had a role to play in their choice of career and on how well they did, and the expectations on getting into a graduate scheme. So we found that there is a decrease in motivation from the first to the final years, but that motivation could be maintained through practical work, particularly group work, field trips, and class activities and class tests help students remain motivated. And on the other hand, theoretical work, while important, well, the students understood that this was important, also did not provide a sense of purpose and were considered dull or boring by the students. And they placed more priority on modules that were of personal interest. And during periods of increased workload, students tended to focus on core modules and did not do so well, or were not motivated to do so well on modules that they felt were just filler. And they all stated the need to meet parental expectations and to maintain their parents' support, and they were motivated to achieve good results, to gain recognition among their peers, and they also mentioned that the ethnic background of their parents had an influence on how much encouragement they received during their studies. So the study found that lecturers, parents, and peers have a significant influence on student motivation. And in addition to these external factors, internal factors such as interest in the topic and personal choices also played a significant role. And we found that we could build up this module to reflect Murray's list of needs, and that the module reflected some of the needs that were listed in his 1938 study. And we also found that motivation could not be a single phenomenon, and that it consists of numerous needs and emotions that need to be addressed both at home, from the family, in the social situation with their peers, and in particular their lecturers and the services that they got from their place of study. And so it was the interaction between them, these factors, that resulted in how motivated the student felt in each year. And so in conclusion, what we found was that student needed to feel more engaged in university, needed support from their family, and needed a peer group where they can feel supported and encouraged.